Little Russia, sometimes Little Rus, is a geographical and historical term of Russian origin for a territory of Cossack Hetmanate after its annexation by Tsardom of Muscovy and transformation of the Cossack Hetmanate into the Little Russia Governorate in 1764. At the same time, Kyrylo Rozumovsky was forced to resign as the Hetman of Zaporizhian Host. The Little Russia Governorate was administered by the Collegium of Little Russia headed by Pyotr Rumyantsev. The purpose of the Collegium of Little Russia was to liquidate any remnants of autonomy in Ukraine. With time it developed into a political and geographical term in the Russian language referring to most of the territory of modern-day Ukraine. Before the 20th century, accordingly, derivatives such as Little Russian were commonly applied to the people, language, and culture of the area. Prior to the revolutionary events of 1917, a large part of the region's elite population were followers of Little Russian identity, which competed with the local Ukrainian identity. After the collapse of the Russian Empire, and with the amalgamation of Ukrainian territories into one administrative unit, the word was phased out of circulation and when used took on a derogatory connotation denoting those Ukrainians with little or no national consciousness. The term retains currency among Russian monarchists and nationalists who deny that Ukraine and Ukrainians are distinct from Russia and Russians, because Ukraine and its people have undergone the process of nation-building over the last 700 years. Little Russia, even in the historic context, can only loosely be considered an equivalent for the word Ukraine. By the late 1980s, the term had become an archaic one, and its anachronistic usage was considered strongly offensive by Ukrainians. Etymology: the toponym translates as Little Rus and is adapted from the Greek term, used in medieval times by patriarchs of Constantinople since the 14th century. The Byzantines called the northern and southern part of the lands of Rus as mu epsilon gamma alpha lambda eta omega sigma sigma iota alpha greater Rus, and mu iota kappa rho omega sigma sigma iota alpha, respectively. Initially Little Russia meant the smaller part, as after the division of the United Rus metropolis into two parts in 1305, a new southwestern metropolis in the land of Halych-Volhynia consisted of only 6 of the 19 former eparchies. Later it lost its ecclesiastical meaning and became a fully geographic name. In the 17th century the term Malorossiya was introduced into Russian. In English the term is often translated Little Russia or Little Rus, depending on the context. Historical usage: the first recorded usage of the term is attributed to Boleslaus George II of Halych. He styled himself Dux Stocius Rusiae Minoris in a letter to Dietrich von Altenburg, the Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights in 1335. The name was used by Patriarch Callistus I of Constantinople in 1361 when he created 2 metropolitan sees, the one called Great Rus in Vladimir and Kiev and the other one called Little Rus with the centers in Gallic and Novgorod. The King Casimir III of Poland was called the King of Lechia in Little Rus. According to Kyrylo Rozumovsky, Little Rus was the Halych-Volhynian Principality, and after its downfall the name ceased to be used. In the post-medieval period, the name of Little Rus is known to first be used by Eastern Orthodox clergy of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. For example, by influential cleric and writer Johann Wyszynski, Metropolitan Matthew of Kiev and All Rus, Bishop Joann of Peremyshal, Metropolitan Isaiah of Kiev, Archimandrite Zacharias Kopystensky of Kiev, Pekos Klavra, etc. The term has been applied to all Orthodox Ruthenian lands of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Vyshansky addressed to the Christians of Little Russia, brotherhoods of Lvov and Vilna, and Kopystensky wrote, Little Russia, or Kiev and Lithuania. The term was adopted in 17th century by Tsardom of Russia to refer to the Cossack Hetmanate of left bank Ukraine, when the latter fell under Russian protection after the Treaty of Pereyaslav. From 1654 to 1721, the official title of Russian Tsars gained the wording, the sovereign of all Rus, the great, the little, and the white. The term Little Rus has been used in letters of the Cossack hetmans Bogdan Khmelnytsky and Ivan Serko. The Archimandrite of the Kiev Pekas Klavryno Kenshigizil wrote that the Russian people is a unity of three branches: Great Russia, Little Russia and White Russia, under the only legal authority of the Moscow Tsars. The term Little Russia has been used in Ukrainian Chronicle by Samyilo Velichko, in a Chronicle of the Hieron Cleonte, in Thesaurus by Archimandrite Ioanniki. The usage of the name was later broadened to apply loosely to the parts of the right bank Ukraine when it was annexed by Russia in the end of the 18th century upon the partitions of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Russian imperial administrative units, the Little Russian Governorate and eponymous general governorship, were formed and existed for several decades before being split and renamed in subsequent administrative reforms. Up to the very end of the 19th century, Little Russia was a prevailing designation for much of the modern territory of Ukraine controlled by the Russian Empire, as well as for its people and the language, as can be seen from its usage in numerous scholarly, literary and artistic works. Ukrainophile historians Mihailo Maximovich, Nikolay Kostomarov, Dmytro Bahailyi, Volodymyr Antonovich acknowledged the fact that during Russo-Polish wars, Ukraine had only a geographical meaning of borderlands of both states, but Little Russia was an ethnic name of Little Russian people. In his prominent work, Two Russian Nationalities, Kostomarov uses Southern Russia and Little Russia interchangeably. Mikhailo Drahomanov titled his first fundamental historic work, Little Russia in its literature. Different prominent artists, many of whom were natives from the territory of modern-day Ukraine, used Little Russia in titles of the paintings of Ukrainian landscapes. The term Little Russian language was used by the state authorities in the First Russian Empire census conducted as late as in 1897. From Little Russia to Ukraine. The term Little Russia used to be widely used as the name for the geographic territory. Since the middle of the 17th century, the modern name Ukraine was used sporadically, until it was reintroduced in the 19th century by a conscious effort of several writers concerned with the awakening of the Ukrainian national awareness. It was not until the 20th century when the modern term Ukraine started to prevail, while Little Russia gradually fell out of use. Modern context. Although originally Little Russia was merely a geographic, linguistic and ethnological term, it is now archaic in its usage in the modern context to refer to the country Ukraine and the modern Ukrainian nation. Its language, culture, etc. is considered an improper anachronism. Such usage is typically perceived as an imperialist view that the Ukrainian territory and people belong to one indivisible Russia, regardless of whether they are aware or not of its origin. Today, many Ukrainian nationalists consider the term to be disparaging, indicative of an older brother attitude, and of imperial Russian suppression of the Ukrainian national idea. In particular, it has continued to be used in Russian national discourse, where modern Ukrainians are presented as a single people in a united Russian nation. This added new hostility and disapproval of the term by some Ukrainians. Little Russianness. Some Ukrainian authors define Little Russianness as a provincial complex they see in parts of the Ukrainian community due to its lengthy existence within the Russian Empire, and describe it as an indifferent, and sometimes a negative stance towards Ukrainian national statehood traditions and aspirations, and often as active support of Russian culture and of Russian imperial policies. Kyrylo Rozumovsky, who used the terms Little Russia and Little Russian in his historical works, applied the term Little Russianness to Russified Ukrainians, whose national character was formed under alien pressure and influence, and who consequently adopted predominantly the worse qualities of other nationalities and lost the better ones of their own. Ukrainian conservative ideologue and politician Vyacheslav Lipinski defined the term as the malaise of statelessness. The same inferiority complex applied to the Ukrainians of Galicia with respect to Poland. The related term Magyarny applied to Magyarized Russians in Carpathian Ruthenia who advocated for the union of that region with Hungary. Another criticized aspect labeled as Little Russianness is a stereotypical image of uneducated, rustic Ukrainians exhibiting little or no self-esteem. Examples of such characterization are popular Ukrainian singer and performer Andrei Danilko, whose uncouth stage persona is an embodiment of this perception. Sergic-speaking Verka Serduchka has also been seen as perpetuating this demeaning image. Danilko himself usually laughs off such criticism of his work, and many art critics point instead towards the fact that his success with the Ukrainian public is rooted in an unquestionable authenticity of Danilko's artistic image.